Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, 5 Hacks to Deliver the Best Hybrid Events of 2023. My name's Dave Jones, and it's my absolute pleasure to host today's session where we're going to spend some time exploring how hybrid experiences have transformed the events industry over the past few years and how you can create an unforgettable experience for your attendees in 2023. Now, we've got some great conversation planned for the next 30 minutes or so, but before we get into that, just some quick housekeeping items for you. For those of you that are listening live today, we are recording the session, and you'll get an email with a link to the recording automatically sent to you in the next day or so. And one thing of note today, we're not doing the traditional Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Instead, just feel free to fire your questions to us via chat throughout the session, and I'll pass as many of those as I can do onto our speakers. And of course, any that we can't answer live, we'll respond to by email when we're done. So that's all the housekeeping done. Let me introduce our illustrious speakers. You've already met me. My name's Dave Jones. I'm CEO of Instinctive Solutions, but it's not me that you've come to listen to. You've come to listen to Nick Rosier and Steve Gibson. Nick is sorry, Nick, to cut you off there. Nick's a prominent figure in the event tech industry following 5 years with two heads as digital and content director. He's now Chief Product and Customer Officer at Gather and brings his experience in online brand immersion to the Gather platform. Nick's got over a decade of experience in broadcast, advertising, digital media, and interactive, and he uses this today to focus on the future of the events industry. Nick, hi, great to have you with us.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for the intro.
Not at all. Steve Gibson has been a trusted advisor to senior execs for global brands in a wide range of industry sectors. His international sales and marketing roles for large and small tech and defense corporations gives him a client-side understanding of those business drivers that we need for events. He balances that with his event agency background, which keeps him firmly focused on delivering in areas such as customer engagement, customer experience, and profitability. And he loves nothing more than working with global teams to deliver engaging event solutions for brands. Steve, welcome.
Thanks so much, Dave, and hi, everyone.
So just before I pass you over to those speakers, let me briefly run through the format for today. So very shortly, Steve's going to share his views on the current state of the events industry and really set the scene for the conversation today. Then we're going to dive into an open discussion around the 5 hacks that you can use to deliver the best hybrid events of 2023. And then finally, we'll come back to Steve, who's going to put his Mystic Meg hat on and try and give us some predictions for how the events industry is going to look in the next couple of years, at least.
Half the audience know who Mystic Meg is, and half of them are thinking, who?
We'll see, right? And the plan is to keep this conversational, very interactive. So again, feel free to get involved. Let us have your questions through the chat window. But with that said, let's get things going. Steve, over to you to kick things off.
Thanks, Dave. So I think everyone can agree it's been an interesting few years for the events industry. I think the global nature of events has changed completely, and I think the attendee expectation has changed completely. And looking at the reasons or the evolution of that's happened, prior to 2019, everyone traveled to events. You had these big global events, and people loved the engagement and things that went on. 2020 kind of put a completely different spin on it. It moved completely virtual. And while it overcame certain problems, it was basically lacked physical interaction. And, it was, although it was more environmentally friendly. 2021, 2022, was it going to swing back to live? Was it going to stay virtual? Was it going to go somewhere in between? Who knew? But to most people, it kind of meant more Zoom or an exhibition stand with a camera on it. And essentially it was boring. It was different kinds of events that really were looking at the two audiences separately. So you looked at the virtual audience and you looked at the in-person audience. And really what this is all about is looking at one audience and making sure that you cater for them in the same sort of engaging way. And really 2023 and onwards is really about the next generation of hybrid event. Or I don't even want to say hybrid event. I just want to say the next generation event, because it will be the norm to do all of these things. So why is that occurring? Well, the main reason is that people have changed. Their time is valuable. Their attention span is reducing to incredibly small amounts. They're all working at home. Most are working at home, at least part way, and travel is less interesting to them. If they're giving up their time to travel, if they're looking at the budget to travel, and this could even be, it's not necessarily their personal money, it's the corporate money. They've got to look at how much of an investment they're making to go to a particular event. And also people have an expectation that, it's got to be, they're zoomed out. It needs to be more engaging than basic, telephony. And they want to have branded experiences with the people they want to engage with. So what can event planners and conference organizers do to address that? I mean, the first thing is you've got to create impressive events. You've got one chance to engage the audience. If they come and it's not great, they won't come again. And it needs to be personal to them. They don't want white labeled experiences. They want to be able to engage. They want to be able to interact with you as a brand. You've got to make the events more inclusive. And I don't just mean inclusive for people around the world. I don't mean inclusive for hierarchies in organizations, but inclusive in a way that enables people to engage with you, your content, in the way they want to. So, I use this example a lot. I like it. If you're at an event and you aren't confident speaking, your mobile phone may be your best friend. You may want to engage with people at that conference using your phone, the speakers, etc., and that's perfectly okay. So provide people the ability to do that, even if they're in the room. You need to make them more educational, more engaging, more fun. Lots of different techniques out there to do that. And utilize the latest technology, whether it's AR or VR, to actually immerse them in the kind of environments that they expect, that they would get if they were in the room. And this, again, is about shared experiences. So again, you could share the same experience, a virtual and augmented reality experience with the live audience, as well as the hybrid. And I guess the key thing is, don't look at it as two separate audiences. Create that journey so that everyone's as closely as possible getting that shared experience. And then stop thinking about those kind of single events. Oh, we went to X event on the 3rd of January. Well, that was great. What about the 3 months prior to that event, during the event and after the event? Why not think of it as a longer period of time? So you're building interest in the event, you're building that community as you go forward, and having lots of different conversations with them before, during, and after the event. And then all of a sudden you've got an ongoing conversation rather than just a couple of times a year. So that's some of the things that we see talking to people every day from different sectors, from different sizes of organizations, from different types of organizations. But they're definitely the things that, we're seeing. And what we've tried to do today is kind of look at those and say, right, well, if these are some of the common problems, what things could you do to make your events, hybrid events, a little bit more interesting, a little bit more engaging? So, with that, I'm going to hand over to Nick to run through some of these things, which we hope you like.
Awesome, sounds good. So jumping onto the first, this is something that's been flying around the news, around pop culture, around the internet for months and months now, GPT. So we wanted to look at these trends and these sort of top tips, I guess, for hybrid in 23 from a technology perspective, but also real technology, things you can do today. So what we're going to do is practical tips, practical things that you can do with good platforms. So with that hybrid sort of mindset in mind. So GPT, people talk about it a lot, right? And you can ask it loads of questions and it's a great sort of oracle, I guess, for the general internet. But where would it actually come in handy in an event? The idea here is that you can start to load GPT with all the information about your event and what specifically, from start and end times to event information. You can even plug in information about reports that you've written, sales information, any data that you have about your product, your event, your team. Plug that in and then start to use GPT as a way to engage with a larger virtual audience. In a physical space, it's easy. You've got booth reps, they're walking around, they're dragging people over. You can have a one-on-one conversation, you can talk to groups, that's not a problem. Where the engagement falls down is in the virtual audience. So how can we start to take an audience of, say, 20,000 people and have one-on-one conversations with them? That's where sort of GPT comes in. And so how do you do that? The simplest implementation would be just using GPT and chat, using GPT and as a sort of personal assistant during those events, and actually being able to offer one-on-one answers for those virtual audiences. So we're going to do something that's pretty dangerous in a live stream. We're going to do a demo.
So you want to do that, Nick?
But what could go wrong, right? So we're going to do demo. And I'll bring up a bit of a sandbox we have set up here. So we're basically going to take a basic GPT chat tool from their site, and we're going to plug in some more information. So we're going to make it specific to an event. So for example, client of ours, WCSD, we're going to sort of tailor this to them. So we say, right, your name is GPT, WCSD GPT. So we give them identity. You're a friendly and helpful event support AI, guiding users through their event experience. I'm going to paste in a bunch of information then. And this is stuff that we spent literally about 5 minutes pulling from the website, pulling from the event details page, and we'd literally just copy pasted as much different bits of text as possible from all that stuff. And so now I'm going to pretend to be a user. So we've programmed our system. It's as simply as that. We're like, we'll start simple. When is the event? Not being specific, not doing anything more clever than that, but asking questions that a real user might ask. So answer immediately. The Ladies and Delegate meeting is scheduled to take place from 2nd to 4th of May in Montreux, Switzerland. I'm going to add a message. What tickets are available? I've got the loudest keyboard that has ever been created. So if you're hearing lots of tapping, that's me.
Not too bad from my side.
What tickets are available? Boom. Oh, submit. Immediately generates answers. 3 types of tickets, all that sort of thing. So it's a really powerful way of, with really no effort at all, generating some content, but really smart. I mean, not only has it told me about the tickets, but it's also said, please contact events@wcc.org to inquire about more details. Like, it's incredible the level of use that you can get out of it.
Presumably, Nick, you could actually, if you had questions coming from your audience, you could feed that into GPT and then basically get a sanity check on the audience mood at the moment and those kind of things.
Yeah, 100%. So we've done this sort of one way. This could be a sort of a bot that sits on an event registration page, or sort of when people first join a big event. But equally, you could do that. You could take all the chat messages coming through the event, plug them into this, and then ask GPT questions about what the sentiment is at that event. So how are people enjoying it? Are there any problems? Pull out all the technical issues people have had. Are there any questions? What's the most common question? And the system, as you can see, is smart enough that it's going to not just dumbly repeat things, but actually creatively generate content based on all that information. So super, super powerful tool. We could dive into this for hours, but it's really exciting. And we've literally done this demo in about 2 minutes flat, and it's an incredible thing. So plug this into the VX platform, that's the sort of Gather VX hybrid events platform, and you can really increase the engagement you're having with that virtual audience.
So Nick, AI is one of the big topics that's going around the world at the moment, right? The next one is the Microverse, or the Metaverse, or call it whatever you want to. And I know you've got some thoughts on that. Are we talking about doing events in 3D or in virtual reality? Is that where we're going?
Yeah, so Metaverse is super hyped up. It's lost a bit of a hype since it was first sort of launched by Facebook back in the day, a couple of years ago now. But what we talk about is now Microverse. So massive virtual world connecting the whole of the world together. We're not quite there yet, but what we can do is small scale versions of the Metaverse which work well in an event scenario for a given brand, right? Microverse. So what could that look like? So we've got a tool that we use on the platform called the Microverse, and this is not just about 3D spaces and actually building a different kind of engagement on a platform. people are used to live streams, they're used to watching this kind of format, they're used to getting media libraries and downloading content. But this is a 3D space, so it mixes up the kind of offering you're able to give to people at that event. But what's really clever about this is we have a social aspect to it. So you see up here, you can jump into a voice call with all of the other people in this room. You can see the 3D avatars walking around, but it's not a one sort of isolated experience. Whenever people play sort of content, so these different video frames, slideshows on the walls, it plays for everyone in that space. So I could have, in a hybrid sense, a customer experience center, an exhibition, a trade show, an event space. In a physical world, I could have a copy of it, a digital twin in this microverse, and I can have a rep guiding people around this virtual space in small groups. Whatever he sees, they see, whatever they look at is shared with the whole groups. It's a real pinning the sort of emphasis on the social aspect of this, which is really key. And that's what's going to help build engagement and give people in the virtual world for that hybrid event the same experience or a better experience as the people in the physical world.
So one thing springs to mind, we obviously work with a lot of media clients, and Cannes Film Festival, amazing event, LA screenings, the Oscar ceremonies, all those kind of things. But some people can't go. Some people aren't invited to go. But you could create like a virtual cinema screening room, and you could go into that room, you could show the film at the right time, you could be sitting next to someone having a chat to that person, they could be a journalist from different parts of the world or whatever, and you could still have an immersive experience of visiting and watching that film.
Exactly. And you won't be able to see this, Steve, but I'm walking through the demo we've got on the Catalyst platform, which is a bit of a sandbox for our platform, right? And so you can see it sort of in action. But yeah, you could be in an auditorium, you could be doing screeners. I mean, for agencies, you could do your pitches here, and have a group of people you're pitching to. Like, what a interesting way to present content that's not just a boring old screen share or a boring old Zoom call.
Yeah.
And actually, we've just had someone message in and say, what about if we plug Chat GPT into that as well, so that we're actually chatting with the AI in that microverse? What a great idea.
Yeah, you could. And there's a little bit of the AI part which we haven't sort of touched on too much, but that's around voice generation. So great, you've got text responses, but in real time now you can get AI voices, so you can actually speak the answers to people in a space like this. Like, how do you and really, because of the quality of what you're getting out of GPT, you really don't know that you're talking to an AI, right? So it's a really clever thing. We've seen so little innovation over the last couple of years in the hybrid event or virtual event space. With all these tools now, suddenly you can get the next leap in innovation. That's what we're all about, so that next gen experiences.
All right, so two very technology-focused hacks to start the session with today. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about sustainability, Nick. So we all know that running in-person events has a big hit on sustainability initiatives, right? People have physically got to get there. You've got to put on huge venues, etc. How do virtual and hybrid events change this? What's the hack that we're talking about here, Nick?
All right, so this next one, number 3, hybrid footprint. So really simply, this is about carbon offset stats. There are a ton of great tools out there for measuring carbon impact as a business, but also now dedicated towards designing that for events. So you can track in-person impact versus virtual impact, and then sort of measure, okay, if I did this all in person, here's my carbon footprint. If we've got a virtual portion of the audience, it's going to massively reduce, and you can put a number to it. So you can put a real value to the fact that you're doing a hybrid event beyond the convenience factor. So this is really, really cool, and everyone should be doing this on their events, measuring that carbon.
Yeah, and I think one of the things everyone's very concerned about time and budget and those kind of things. And obviously there's a concern about sustainability, but I see sustainability kind of carbon offsetting being a currency where you're putting together your program of events and you go, oh, I've got X amount of real money for that event. I've got so much of my carbon footprint for this event, and you'll be offsetting it and saying, well, actually, the return in financial return doesn't weigh the carbon offset in return. So actually, I'm going to do a virtual event there in order to save carbon offsetting, and I'll put my money or carbon offsetting into the live event, which I have to do. So I think that's going to be an interesting change, and also whether that's going to impact regulation, whether people, you might actually say that, in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, you can't have a live event unless it's got this offsetting or something else.
100%.
It'd be very interesting times, I think.
Yeah, I think absolutely.
All right. So sustainability, I get, Nick. Fully understand that. Now, the next hack, I really have no idea what's coming. We're talking about proof of attendance. What on earth is all that about?
All right, proof of attendance. So this is going to sound really hypey, just like Metaverse sounds hypey, but NFTs, obviously blockchain technology, and they're sort of tokenized images, right? But there was a little hype around that in terms of, okay, you can sell artwork, so what? It's costing money and it's a bit sort of copyable. What's the point? But there's a new sort of wave of NFTs that have come out called utility NFTs, and proof of attendance is one implementation of that. And so this is the idea that you're building communities through use of these digital tokens, through use of these NFTs. And there's a few companies doing this, and again integrating into platform. But the idea here is that by attending an event, virtually or in person, you get an NFT to say, yes, I attended. And that's trackable on this sort of centralized ledger. You can prove it. You have to have visited for X amount of time to get it. So for gamifying the attendance of all your sort of global program events, this is really cool. These are like badges of honor. I can put these on my physical badge when I print it out to show all the previous events for this brand I've been to, but I could also have it on my avatar on the platform, and sort of then as an attendee or as a salesperson, I can see, oh, this person's got loads of experience. He's been to like ton of these. Oh, she's actually, this is their first event. I better give her extra attention and sort of help her around, ask if she needs support, ask if she knows anyone here. Like, the information it gives you is as powerful as the sort of collectible sort of nature, like, oh, I want to grab these kind of nice shiny tokens. And then I guess another sort of aspect of it is, if you look at the pharma world or the science world, and other industries as well, there's a big emphasis on, and often the first question we get from attendees is, cool, I've logged in now, do I get a certificate? Where's my certificate for attending? Because you get points towards all sorts of things in the certificates you get from attending industry events. And so tokenizing those certificates with these NFTs could be a great way to make it more secure and trackable, and make sure that people are actually attending to get the certificate that they've proved. And if you have the platform which can accept these, it's going to make that whole process much, much easier than manually going into Photoshop and creating 200 certificates at the end of the event.
Not just for external events.
Sorry, Steve, go on.
It's okay. Not just for the external events, internal events as well. So you're onboarding, someone like Facebook is onboarding 400 people in the UK a day or something, so they're going to want to know that they've gone through their different sessions, that they've ticked off the different policies, and, these super employees will build their credibility with all these tokens in the live world and in the virtual world. So it could be like when you get to this level, you can enter these chat rooms. When you enter this, you can get this information. Exactly. It's going to be very interesting.
Beautifully explained, guys. I fully get it now. In perfect time for our final hack of the day. And one of the challenges, and we talked a little bit about it so far, one of the great things about physical events is the in-person networking. That's a challenge with virtual and hybrid events, though, right, Nick? Yeah.
And it's a challenge. I mean, let's talk hybrid. It's a challenge because, as Steve was saying earlier, like, you talk about the physical audience and the virtual audiences separately, and they're sort of treated as different, distinct and discrete groups. But fundamentally, everyone's attending the event. It should be a community experience that has no barriers and has no sort of ifs and buts. So this is a sort of call out there to all the brands and all the event management teams, and this is around building your next events in 2023 with a hybrid first mentality. So it's easy to think, right, we'll sort the physical budget out, we'll build a physical space, and then we'll think about virtual and having some kind of thing for virtual attendees afterwards. But it doesn't work because you end up with a half-baked solution. You haven't had time to integrate whatever platform you're using into the actual physical event. And so designing the space, the AV in the physical space, to fit with whatever virtual solution you have is really crucial. And that's as simple. We've got a couple of images here. It's having these sort of hybrid networking pods on the right, or even sort of meeting room cameras, reps with iPads so they can have virtual calls and show people around a physical space. But budgeting from the beginning, apportioning a piece of that for the hybrid element is vital. Otherwise, there's never enough money, you know. And I think the amount of time people spend on looking at wallpaper finishes and carpets and materials should be equal to the amount of time people spend worrying about what the sound quality is like, what the audio is like, what the video is like, and what my user journey is like when actually getting to this virtual side of it too.
Makes perfect sense. Nick and Steve, 5 great hacks and loads of great industry insights throughout that. Thank you both very much. But before we finish today, Steve, I've got a question that's come in for you, which I think is hilarious. Who's Mystic Meg? And why are you going to try and pretend to be like her?
So Mystic Meg was someone that wrote the horoscopes in the Sun newspaper for a long, long period of time, like 40 years. She actually died, I think, this month, I think. No. But yeah, it was pretty much any time anyone talked about astrology and things like that, they would say, refer to Mystic Meg.
All right, so you're going to be Mystic Meg for us for a second.
I'm going to try.
We see coming in the future, right?
Yeah, so again, based on the things we've seen, the conversations we're having, which are a lot of conversations, hybrid's here to stay. There's no way it's going to go back to just in person. There's no way it's going to be just virtual. This is where it's going to be at. The money versus the carbon offsetting thing, that the sustainability and budgets will continue to be under scrutiny for the foreseeable future with the global economies, etc. And people are going to be using those, you know, as a currency with their event planning. I think the days of the big single event where all the top execs go, you know, that's going to change. That's limited. I think there's going to be a lot more smaller events around the world, and people will pick and choose which ones they go to, but they go there with the anticipation that it's inclusive and they're an equal participant. Whether they're virtual or in person, they need to be able to engage with people and do those kind of things. That's what their expectation is going to be. And they want their voice to be heard. So I think that's a key thing. The wider community, you know, hybrid is definitely going to enable people to talk to these wider groups, up and down organizations, cross the world, across different groups, and build that community. And the last thing, I think, the focus on data. So there's loads of data around there. You're drowning in it. I think what the hybrid world will do is bring some of the virtual tracking into the live world, and you'll be able to look at events, you'll be able to calculate the return on investment, the return on experience that you're getting from it, and then use that information to plan which events you attend and how you attend them and who you send to them and how they go to them and what they engage with in a more kind of rational way, rather than, oh, we've got to go there because everyone else is there kind of approach.
Fantastic, Steve. We look forward to those predictions all coming true in the future. But that is the end of our webinar session today. You can find out more information about Gather via the website at gather.com, which is gther.com. And we really hope you've enjoyed today's session. I'd like to thank Steve Gibson and Nick Rosier. Thank you both very much. Fantastic session today, guys. And thank you all for joining us today. You've been watching 5 Hacks to Deliver the Best Hybrid Events of 2023, brought to you by Gather. Until we meet again, goodbye for now.
Thank you.